I'm always putting a stop in, whether it's mental or hard stop. I'm always having something in place to check me. I never want to be in a position where I freeze up and something keeps going against me, because that can get out of hand very quickly.
Hello, everybody. This is Anthony for Investors Underground. Today, I have an opportunity to speak with an outstanding member within the Investors Underground community. He's a finance professional who learned how to trade during the pandemic in 2020. He's continued to learn, adapt, and craft his trading style to the point of reaching consistency and profitability. IU members may recognize him from the chat as Hollow. It's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Hirst Holloway. Hello, Hirst. Thank you for being here and taking the time to speak with me today.
Thanks, Anthony. Appreciate the opportunity.
Hirst, for anybody who hasn't had a chance to meet you, my first question is, can you give everybody a bit of background about yourself and how you first got started with the stock market and trading?
My very first experience was in early high school, either freshman or sophomore year. Some friends were talking about this new hot stock that IPO'd over the summer. Just happened to be Tesla. So, I wish I would have taken that idea and, forgot about it until now, but sadly I didn't. I didn't really follow back up with the stock market until college. And I took an investing class, and, we invested the school's money, and that was more value investing approach. And I never really thought about trading as a career opportunity because I always thought you had to have a big account for it to work for you. But what I missed was that how much a small gain can really add up and then compound. And, two is I never really understood the range of the small cap space.
Did you think that you would eventually go into the world of finance? Were you a finance major? Did you focus on business at all? What did you end up doing after college?
Yes, so I was originally a marketing major, and I did a marketing internship, and I kind of realized that wasn't for me. I was really focused on like market research of marketing and kind of the numbers around it, but I did an internship and I knew that marketing wasn't for me, and so I actually double majored and I went into finance instead. And I never really thought about trading as a career, but I knew finance always interested me, and then maybe later down the road I would approach trading. But yeah, it was never on my mind.
So, did you pursue a career in finance after college?
After college, I took a job as a financial analyst, and so that's still what I do today. Trade part time, work full time, so it's a balancing act.
How would you define your trading style and your niche?
Mainly, I take small cap gappers. My style is I try to stay as patient as possible when I'm right, and add along the way. But it definitely took me a while to find that niche.
How did you discover your niche? Was this something that took time and trial and error, or were you looking at other traders and seeing what they're doing and what might appeal to you and figured it out that way? How did that all come about?
Mainly trial and error. Honestly, in my opinion, I think that's really the only way. At least for me, it is. I think if I were to just study others, I'd still be studying because there's millions of ways and styles, and I think you don't really understand until you pull the trigger and you really know what it feels like.
What are some of the tickers or stocks that you think exemplify your current trading style and where you're finding success in the markets?
Yeah. So some recent ones are BWV, Pixie, PIXY, and AGLE. All of those were really gappers in June. And I think the price action just was kind of exactly what I was looking for. I was able to scale along those trades, and they ended up being great.
How did you eventually start to find consistency in your trading? I know you had said earlier that you were focused on just the hot stock of the day and you weren't doing much in the pre-market to prepare. When did that all change and you start to find more consistency in your trading?
Well, profitability definitely, as I said, wasn't right away. in the moment, I felt like, that journey took way too long and it felt kind of unnatural. But looking back on it, I think it's a very common experience, and I think it's a pretty normal amount of time. Um, the problem for me in that time was way too much leniency. I wasn't being strict enough with what trades I took. I was just kind of taking any trade that made sense and maybe seemed like a good trade. My sizing was off. It was all very arbitrary back then. Like there was no real plan, no real sizing plan. So once I kind of got those things under control, I kind of started to turn things around.
What was your catalyst to start turning things around? Was there anything in particular that really pushed you to take your trading more seriously, do more work, and take it to the next level?
Yeah, definitely. So I think I kind of started to look at it as, something had to give. If I want to do this long term, then I had to change something. Um, some things that were holding me back was, like I said, entering with trades without a plan, not entering correct sizes. Um, and so I knew to become profitable, I had to focus either on increasing my win rate or increasing my wins relative to my losses. What I focused on was being just way more selective and focusing mainly on small cap shorting. I think, a question I was constantly asking myself when refining was, would you rather be trading all the time and not making money, or, not being consistently making money? Or would you rather take a lot less trades and only really take the trades with an edge and make money?
That's interesting. I think that's sort of a common characteristic for newer traders who might be pressing buttons thinking that's how they make money and not really realizing that it's the patience that it takes to find edge and let a trade work that can really be the payoff. You said you had restarted trading in 2020. When was it in terms of time and years when you really started to take your trading more seriously? Was that 2021, 2022?
I started in May or June of 2020. I think I was mainly longing until December or so. I had a family emergency. My dad actually passed away of COVID, so that was in January of 2021. So that kind of put things in perspective. I, took some time off, and then, I kind of wanted to, be at peace with everything, be around my family a little more. And so in October, I started again, and that's when I started mainly shorting, and that was October of 2021. So that it probably took me from October of 2021, probably about October of 2022, to really find out what I was doing wrong. It probably took me a year of mainly shorting to figure out, this is what I'm doing wrong. I need to refocus on this and this. And so it kind of helped going into the winter months of 2022 and early 2023. So it was definitely a setback, early 2021. But I think if I wouldn't have taken some time off, I might not be here.
I want to give hats off to you for having the emotional awareness to even step away. Some traders, when they have something like that to face, a family emergency or other circumstances, they sort of just lean into the trading, which can be disastrous. And so, you being able to step away, I think, speaks to the maturity on your part. And so when you came back to trading and you started to find consistency and profitability, I think that's great. My question is, do you have any advice for traders who might be struggling in their trading right now with consistency and profitability?
I think one of the main things a trader that's struggling, the first thing they should really ask themselves is if they really want it. At the end of the day, if you don't want it enough, it's not going to work. If you're struggling because the work's not being put in, I would just tell them it's, probably not for them, because simply no one's going to do the work for you. However, if you're putting the work in and you're still not seeing the results, I would kind of lay it out like I did when I made my pivot. I would say the first thing you need to do is analyze to see if you actually have edge. Because if you have edge and you're not executing right, then that's one thing. But if you don't have edge, then that's a whole other thing. So I would say review all of your trades. and then separate them into categories and strategies. And then see which ones of those have, like a positive expectancy over the long term. And if they don't, figure out why. Is it because, what mistakes are you making? Are you cutting them too quickly? Are you not letting them work? Are you not taking ideal setups? There's a million questions you can ask. But, I think all the psychology and discipline in the world kind of just boils down to 2 points. And it's either you aren't winning enough money per trade, i.e., like your risk reward is out of control, or you're not winning frequently enough. And I guess I might add a third, losses are just too big. So I would say mainly, just review everything you're doing, and, really think about if you have edge or not.
How did you learn how to dig into the data? What type of data are you collecting? How are you doing so? And what advice would you give for traders who might want to start doing something similar?
I found GoSock trades on Twitter. And he was really big into, back testing, et cetera, data collecting. And it really interests me. I found Tim Gertani early on, and he kind of opened my eyes to data, and data collecting. In my opinion, a trader can really only have two ways of edge, and it's, either experience or data. And I knew I didn't really have the experience. And so naturally I turned to data. I've always kind of been into numbers. And so it just made a little more sense to me.
I wanted to talk a little bit about risk and how you're thinking about risk in terms of whether you'll decide to get into a trade or not. How do you think about risk to reward?
Yeah. So I think risk is the most important part of anyone's trading. If your risk's not in control, then, you're not going to be profitable in the long term. But I use a 1% system, where, 1% of account value. But I will add scale, and sometimes that'll be 2-3% if the trade's working correctly. I kind of like to be aggressive on something that's working in my favor.
So, in terms of 1%, are you thinking about just using 1% of your account value on any given trade?
Yes. So those are the main setups, right? If I'm adding a new setup, and right now I'm really only trading a couple of setups, two or three. But if I'm adding a new setup, I'll maybe do, a third, like, a third of that or a fourth of that. Something that still makes the trade meaningful, but not so much as in, I'm new, I'm going to make mistakes in the new setup. So I'd rather that not be as much market tuition.
What type of risk to reward ratio are you looking for? Or what does it take for you to get interested in a stock and decide that you're possibly going to be entering a trade?
I don't really have a specific risk reward that I need. I have some setups that I may only get a 1-to-1, but in those setups, I'll be winning, 70-80% of the time. But then there's other setups where you're only winning 40% of the time. But, I think for those, you need a much higher risk reward. But if I have data on something or an edge on something, I'll trade it as long as it's a real edge.
Are you adding into losing trades? Do you do just, one entry and that's it? Or do you scale in based on certain risk parameters? What does that look like in terms of the trade management as it relates to risk?
Yeah. So I never add to a loser. That's one of my rules. It's a slippery slope when you start adding to losers, in my opinion, or maybe that just doesn't work for me. But usually my first entry is data driven, and then after that, if the trade starts working or starts proving, then I'm scaling, and I'm scaling in at a 1%, and then I'm scaling into 2 or 3% if it continues to work.
How do you apply risk management to your trades?
Definitely have some practical rules, the max loss, um, but really, I'm never I'm always putting a stop in, whether it's mental or hard stop. I'm always having something in place to check me. I never want to be in a position where I freeze up and something keeps going against me, because that can get out of hand very quickly.
Do you have a max stop per trade? Do you have a max stop a max loss on an amount per day that you're going to just walk away from trading altogether? How do you think about those types of scenarios in terms of knowing when to stop a trade?
I have a max loss per day. I know other traders use a max loss per trade. Um, that doesn't work for me because I know I will just carry that into the next trade. I know if I'm emotional on a trade, I think I should rather just step away because if I'm being emotional on that trade, who's to say I'm not going to be emotional on the next trade? Maybe that'll change in the future, but as of right now, if it hits that max stop, I'm done for the day.
Is your max stop something that you keep mental note of and you stop it manually, or is this something that you set with your trading platform and your broker?
Yeah. So originally it was mental, and that did not work. I took in January and February, I took a bigger loss than I ever thought I would on funny enough, ticker HOLO, which is hollow. Um, and so, after that, I listened to Nate's suggestion and I implemented it at the broker level. And so if it hits that, they take me out and they don't let me enter any more trades. But, I never really thought I'd hit that again. But then, top came around and I hit max loss on top. And, if I hadn't hit that, who knows if I'd be around or where I'd be today. So I really recommend it. I think we're all human and we make mistakes, and there's no reason to let, that one mistake blow your chance at sustained success.
Do you have any recommendations to traders who might be struggling with their risk management? What's one piece of advice that you would give to them, anybody who's looking to improve in that area?
Risk management is really the most important part. If you can't admit when you're wrong, then I don't think trading's for you because everybody's wrong at some point. But I think the great traders, when they're wrong, they cut it immediately and they don't continue on and see what it does. Whereas the new traders, and I used to do this all the time. It's just kind of, let's just see what happens after it goes past this, and maybe it'll fail after that, or maybe it'll spike after that, etc. But I just think that's a really slippery slope, and then it goes a lot further than you think. So I think to be successful, it has to be your number one priority.
I know Nate mentions this about capital preservation, and it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you're saying the same thing, which is risk management and the ability to preserve your capital and the ability to come and trade tomorrow is very high up there, if it's not the most important factor.
There's always another trade, and I don't think one trade is ever worth giving your account away.
Have you found that your academic background in finance or even your career, your profession in finance helped you in any way with trading?
I think some of the concepts maybe apply, but overall, I would say it hasn't helped me in my trading because now I'm mainly focused on 90% technicals, and if anything, it's it might have hurt me more because you get too biased on a company and you don't really respect the technicals that are happening instead.
And do you use any sort of fundamental analysis in your trading these days?
Not much. I use, some of the main criteria that small caps need: cash and, dilution, etc. But I don't do a ton of research. There's no reading 10Ks, etc.
You're no stranger to the Investors Underground community, and members might recognize you from the midweek study session or the chat. So I wanted to ask, how does Investors Underground factor into your trading? How do you use the resources that Investors Underground has to offer to improve yourself as a trader?
I think every trader needs a point where they don't rely on someone else to trade. So I wouldn't say I couldn't do what I do without it, but it makes things a lot more efficient and definitely makes idea generation way better. Tools wise, I use the scanning software every single morning. I use it every day after hours. I use price alerts on a daily basis because they're in the platform. They are right there. And then other than the tools, I think IU is a great place to kind of sanity check yourself. When you see 10 other great traders thinking the same thing, then it really gives you more conviction and confidence in your idea, and you can really scale into that trade.
If you're looking to improve your trading efficiency or idea generation, Investors Underground can help. You'll have access to courses and mentors to learn from, some of the best technology available for scanning stocks and breaking news, and access to the chat rooms where you'll find a vibrant community of focused traders who share their trading ideas and thoughts in real time every single day. You'll also have access to Nate's morning broadcast, the midweek study session with Sam, webinars, moderator watch lists, and all the other resources that Investors Underground has to offer. Listeners of the podcast can access special deals at investorsunderground.com/YouTube. And now, back to our interview. Hirst, what role does data and analysis and reviewing your trades really play for you in terms of becoming more profitable?
I review my trades weekly, monthly, and quarterly even. I think reviewing your trades, and especially your winners, and seeing how you can maybe add to those and make them more profitable, or even your losers if you didn't stop out in the right spot, or you think you could have done this differently. I think reviewing your trades gives you an idea of what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. And if you're doing something wrong, if it pops up enough, then you need to address that. I kind of have a weekly review where I'm tallying mistakes, and if I start to see enough of one mistake, then I need to think about that and how I can address that.
How are you collecting your data? Are you doing like a review journal? Are you using any software to collect your data and review your trades? What does that look like in terms of how you're reviewing what you do and what you did for that week?
Yeah, so I do both. My weekly is I'm reviewing every chart that I traded. I'm kind of looking at all my entries and making sure I think they were good trades, and they align with my strategies. And then monthly, I use TraderView. It syncs all my trades, and I kind of review the month, and then I kind of go back through those reviews of the weekly reviews of that month, and see if I made a mistake 2 weeks in a row or 3 weeks in a row, or I did well 2 weeks or 3 weeks in a row. And that will kind of determine my next month. If I'm trading well, I'd like to increase size. If I'm not trading as well, I'd like to maybe decrease size a little bit.
For traders who may have experienced a big loss or are going through a losing streak and are thinking about taking some time away, what advice would you give them? Because I know you had mentioned you did something very similar. So what would you tell those in a similar situation?
Yeah, I would say that if you try to trade through that rough spot, it's not going to help you. It's going to make it a lot worse. So I would try and take, even if it's a week off, 2 weeks off. Obviously I took 8 or 9 months off, but even a week or two where you're not trading, and just kind of taking some time away for yourself and kind of re-energizing your mental capacity. Trading's not an easy thing to do. You're always thinking about if you're trading correctly, or if you could have done something better or worse, or if you lost money. There's a lot going on. So I think taking time away is sometimes the best solution.
And when you come back to trading, do you approach it the same exact way as when you left, or do you start small and build up from there? Can you talk about what it was like, at least for you, when you started trading once again?
Actually, in the beginning, I tried to trade afterwards for 2 or 3 weeks, and it just wasn't working. I was emotionally trading, and I just kind of realized it wasn't going to work long term. So after that time I took off, I kind of watched the market for 2 weeks, and then I jump back in with maybe a fourth risk or something. I mean, small. I could lose 12 times in a row, and it wouldn't be super meaningful. So I really recommend easing back into it.
How important was it for you to not have to depend on your trading income during that period? Because one of the things that I think is really interesting about you is that you have a career and you're a finance professional and you have income that comes in that way, not necessarily through trading. So, first question I have is how beneficial was that in terms of your psychology to not have to worry about trading income?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think it was everything. I think if I were to, you know, be only trading, I don't think I would have felt I could have taken that time off. I think I would have tried to trade through it, and I think it would have not gone well at all. I think I would have lost a lot more money than I ever would have made. Um, and I think trading and working it's difficult, but I think it's way more beneficial to not rely solely on trading in the beginning for a while.
Do you find that it's beneficial to have income coming in outside of trading? In other words, does it help you during your trade to think that this is not everything?
Yeah, I think it's very important. I think if I were to only trade, I think I would be trading a lot differently. I think I would try to hold on to winners, maybe not as long because I wouldn't want them to reverse against me. And I think I would be, a little more risk adverse. I think eventually I'll get to a point where it's not working out. I can't do both. But I think for now, at least, it's difficult. But I think I wouldn't want to do it any other way for right now.
What advice would you give those who are thinking about quitting their profession and their career in order to pursue trading full time?
Yeah, I would say make sure you have a good amount of money saved up. You don't want to be in a position where you you have to trade to make your ends meet. I think that's kind of a recipe for disaster. I think that if you try to do that, if you're thinking about entering a trade or not getting groceries or so, just ends meet is it's just tough. It's added pressure that I don't think any trader needs. Trading's hard enough. I don't think you need that added pressure for sure.
If it's okay with you, Hurst, I wanted to go through a lightning round set of questions, quick answers. Is that okay?
Yeah, sounds great.
My first question is, what would you consider to be your greatest strength as a trader?
I would say patience and kind of adding into a winner. I really want to be as patient as possible if a trade's going in my favor, and ideally, I don't want to cut it until the last possible time.
What would you say is the best piece of trading advice you've ever received or ever heard?
Yeah, so there's a few. One is I don't know where I saw this or who gave this to me, but every trade should either be a loss, a normal loss, a break even, a small win, or a big win. There should never be any big losses in there. And then another thing is, Nate always says that, don't get chopped up on the front side of a move. And I never thought that was me until, I kind of reviewed my month 1 month and I was, all over the front side of a move. And then I missed the whole backside.
Do you think there are any misconceptions or even myths about trading?
Yeah, I think within the community, a lot of newer traders think that once your account size gets to X, it's going to be a lot easier. And then I would also add newer traders think experienced or profitable traders know they think that profitable traders know what will happen on any single trade. Where instead, I think those traders think about it more of a probability of something happening. And then outside the community, I would just say I think a lot of people think trading is gambling when in reality it's kind of the exact opposite.
Do you favor any particular technical indicators on your charts?
Not really. When I get into swinging long a little more, I might. But I think a lot of them are useless. At least to me, they are. Maybe I don't know enough for them, but I think right now I only use VWAP, and I think the rest of them would just clog my charts up.
Is there anything that you do away from your trading desk that you believe helps you as a trader once you get back to your desk and are trading?
Yeah, definitely. I try to golf as much as possible. I'm always taking mental breaks and going on walks with my fiance and our dog. Running, working out in the morning always helps me trade with a clear mind.
What would you say is your most memorable moment in trading so far?
Yeah, so I think the first time I made over $1,000 on a trade, um, it was just a crazy feeling, because it was sort of, everything I had learned came together in this trade, and it all kind of worked out. And it was kind of the first time I thought that, wow, like this could really be a career.
And for anybody who wants to learn more about you or the way that you trade, how can they find you?
They can find me in IU room, under Hollow, and Twitter, or I guess X now. Um, but I don't post a ton on Twitter, but I might start to post more trade recaps, et cetera, in the future. So
Well, Hirst, thank you so much for being here and taking the time to chat with me today.
thanks, Anthony. Appreciate it.
We hope you enjoyed this interview on the Investors Underground podcast. We have more great interviews that we believe you might also like, so don't forget to subscribe. You'll be notified of upcoming releases the moment they become available. Thanks for watching.